Hello, welcome to today's interview with Oliver Burdekin about his work on mapping the Maldivian megafauna with Mergin Maps. I know Oliver is a fellow YouTuber. He has great videos at his burdGIS YouTube channel. I'm sure he does more than that. So, Oliver, can you tell a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Hans. Great to be here today. So I'm Oliver, or you can call me Ollie. That's absolutely fine. And I'm the founder of burdGIS. So in burdGIS or at burdGIS, I specialize in GIS training and consultancy. So I've got a real focus on environmental and conservation projects. I've been working in GIS now for a long time. I was first introduced to it at university back in 1999. Wow, that's a long time ago. And then hands-on experience with GIS actually began when I was living and working in Mexico on a marine conservation project. Um, I came back to the UK from the tropics in 2014 to work on expanding my client base. And since then, I'm now based in Leeds and collaborate with numerous different clients. So I've worked in all kinds of different spaces. We've got conservation, ecology, planning, extractives, a full range of different GIS applications.
Sounds really cool. So, I would like to find out a bit more about your nice project in Maldives using Mergin Maps. So, can you explain us what the goal of the project was and how you got into that project?
Can I say, first of all, whenever I list projects that I've worked in, it's always the Maldives that people want to talk about. Has that
Sure.
special magnetism, I think. So one of my students that I was actually training in GIS had come from the Maldives, and she was working in the Maldives Underwater Initiative. So that's a project, or that's an organization that works with the Six Senses Resort on the atoll of Lamu in the Maldives. And MUI, as it's also known, the Maldives Underwater Initiative, also work with three NGOs. So they've partnered with three NGOs. The Olive Ridley Project, which works with sea turtles, the Manta Trust, working with manta rays, and the Blue Marine Foundation, a charity focused on marine conservation. So they've been working with these partners for a number of years now and do a whole suite of research on the marine environment. So they're looking at coral reef restoration, at sea turtle nesting, at seagrass meadows, and also megafauna. So the project that I was asked to focus on was the megafauna project. And that is anything that's pretty large and lives in the sea.
That must be amazing, the nature over there, and especially if I imagine megafauna. They're probably not
Yeah.
as big as dinosaurs, but pretty big species.
Yeah.
The tool you developed was, of course, with Mergin Maps for collecting the data. What tools did they use before?
So as with many conservation projects, I've been working in conservation for a number of years now, but they were definitely more on the pen and paper or pencil and paper side of things. So that's the problem that I was asked to come in and solve. They really wanted to digitize data collection for all the reasons that you may have heard of previously. You get a data backlog, so you get stacks and stacks of paper building up. And then somebody has to enter those into a database or an Excel worksheet or similar. That obviously introduces more opportunities for errors. You don't get the same data validation as well. So all kinds of reasons to move onto a digital platform as opposed to using pen and paper.
Yeah, I can also imagine that it causes risks if you're out on the sea and with all the water, and that there are risks that the paper gets drowned. And of course, with digital stuff, you have similar kind of problems, but you can probably better have protected devices on board.
Yeah, that's right. You've got the waterproof casings that you can put on devices these days as well. The other thing I should add too is that you do get the obviously the GPS functionality through Mergin Maps as well, and that was something that added a little more to the project as well. Previously, they were just working off dive sites, and they were point locations. But with Mergin Maps, when they resurfaced from a dive, the divers would know which area they had surveyed, so what their dive plan looked like, and they could actually put a track on there, so you actually get more information about the area covered. Some of the data that they were collecting too includes the visibility underwater. So from that, you kind of get a horizontal, cylinder of the area that's been surveyed, which can really help with calculations like relative abundance. It's not perfect, but it certainly adds more to the model as opposed to just having a point survey.
And I can imagine that another advantage is that Mergin Maps integrate well with the QGIS. So have they been using QGIS? Did you train them on QGIS? And how do they use Mergin Maps with QGIS?
Yeah, so a lot of the projects involved training. Part of what I like to do as burdGIS is to build capacity. So rather than dropping in and saying, here's Mergin Maps, off you go, I like to show people the inner workings of it, how to build their own projects, and how to integrate it with QGIS as well. So it does afford a lot of opportunities. Obviously, the way that Mergin Maps works with QGIS is absolutely fantastic. And it does mean that here in Leeds, I can actually drop in and see what they're doing on the project too. So in terms of troubleshooting, I can do that remotely from here. That's not a problem at all. So if they've got any issues with the data, I can certainly dig into the project and help out there. And in terms of training, we did do a few sessions of training online. But then I was fortunate enough to be asked to go to the Maldives as well and actually see the project in full flow. So we did a little bit of pre-training using video conferencing, and then actually got hands-on to see how the surveys work in real time, which was great. Good diving.
Yeah, that sounds really good to be there and to really see what they are mapping to. And then also the processing of the data. Did you follow up over there, or did you do that from distance?
It depends what the data is being used for. So this is a longitudinal study. They're looking at, I think they've got around 32 different species of megafauna out there, 28 of which are on the IUCN endangered list. But they feed into various different projects. So they've had a paper out on Napoleon wrasse, for example. There's another one in the works on sharks, and they feed into larger projects as well. So back in 2022, the president of the Maldives actually designated 6 MPAs, marine protected areas, on the Lamu Atoll, which is great news and really shows how the data can be, put to good use. Moving forward, that looks like, that can really inform how the marine protected areas are going to be managed. So you can see which species prefer which areas, and also seasonal shifts, that kind of thing. So in terms of data processing, I leave that largely to the Maldives Underwater Initiative, depending on what they're actually focusing on and which parts of the data they're pulling out in order to work with.
Sounds great. So did you face any challenges, or what are the current challenges with these kind of environmental projects?
Challenges. One is that this was a marine project. I don't know if you've ever tried to get a GPS signal underwater.
I never
So
tried.
it's not very easy. So yeah, we did have a think about how we could how we could solve that, how we could get more of a transect as opposed to as a point location. One solution that we came up with was leaving Mergin Maps running, because obviously you can collect points, lines, and polygons using the app. So we did leave it running and tracking just on the dive boat as we were diving to see what the results were like. Part of the problem with that is that you don't really know what the boat driver is going to do. So he may choose to follow the dive or may decide to go off on a wander. So we got some very strange tracks from that. Eventually, we decided it's probably best just to follow the dive plan. So the actual routes of the dives are pretty rough. They are an estimate, but as I said, that's better than just having a point for that data.
Yeah, I see that offers specific challenges if you work under the water, and losing also the GPS fix if you want to trace lines.
Yeah.
That's also there are other conditions like in forests. You can sometimes have that and needs a lot of post processing to correct it. So I guess you need to really think through how to best collect that type of data.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Oliver, after collecting all that data, did you do some kind of validation of the data?
It's largely unnecessary. I mean, obviously, it's a good idea to have a look at your data once it's collected, but using Mergin Maps, you can use drop downs, you can use lookup tables, all kinds of things in order to make sure that your data is validated on the way in, which is really, really important. If you are out diving in the Maldives, the dive sites have some quite inventive names. Some of them may be local names, some of them may be made up by the dive school themselves. And so if people are going to a site and they're not sure of the name, they could just put in a name that might not be congruous with that, but we can actually limit the dive site names available to them. Other projects that I've worked on, if you're using the binomials, so the genus and the species, the Latin name, that can obviously lead to a lot of spelling mistakes unless you've got that data validation going on. So yeah, using the Mergin Maps app really helps to streamline that, and means that on the other side, when you're actually processing your data, it's actually a lot quicker than it could be.
So that's a good tip to really design the forms in such a way that you validate on the input side already to catch a lot of problems that you might face after data collection. Well, Oliver, that sounds like a really great project setup in Mergin Maps. So now we're, of course, very curious about how it looks like in QGIS and Mergin Maps when you set it up. Can you tell a bit more about the demo that you're going to give?
Yeah, sure. So in the demo, there's a particular aspect of this project that was quite neat. One thing that we did want to include was some kind of reminders of species. So we've got some photographs in there for various species of shark, of turtle, etc. Now, we don't want those to be available in the app all the time. So we've added a little toggle switch, which makes them drop down. So they're not going to get in the way of your data collection. But if you do need a little reminder, you can just toggle that switch and have a look at the difference between a hawksbill turtle or a green turtle, for example. The other nice aspect of that is that when the divers or when the surveyors are on the boat, if they have guests from the Six Senses resort with them, they can actually use the tablet with running Mergin Maps and show them the various species that they're going to be hopefully seeing whilst they're on a dive. And it really drives a bit more engagement, gives a bit of ownership to the scientific research that's happening at Six Senses and MUI.
Sounds cool. Let's have a look.
All right, let's go. All right, let's start by having a look at the project in QGIS. So I've got it open here. I have used the very handy Mergin Maps plugin to download from the Mergin Maps web app. So my project's stored up there on the cloud, and I've downloaded a local version that I can tinker with on my local machine. Now the project itself, it's really quite simple. We've just got one survey layer that can be altered. So if we were to put in a new dive track, then we could add data to that through the attributes. Now I've got some other layers in there. They really just provide context. We've got a couple of reference tables as well for site name and data recorder, so we can use those as lookups in the app. And we'll have a look at the app in a moment. Now if I just zoom in to the resort island, you can see the villas out on their walkways here. So very nice sights and lots of beautiful reef around there that you can see through Bing Virtual Earth. Now these green lines, they denote snorkels or dives that have taken place, and this is just a rough guesstimate of where the dive plan went and where the divers went. You can see from the legend over on the left hand side that if it's bright green, that means that the survey was completed within the last week, and if it is a kind of less obvious green, that means that it's older than this week, happened within the last month. Now I do have the option to turn on all surveys. This gets pretty hectic. We've got all surveys here, so this is all time, And around the resort itself, you can see there's tons of surveys and snorkels that take place out here. So it's quite common for guests to go out and do what's called the house reef. But to get rid of the clutter and just to give us an idea of what's been surveyed most recently, we can use that kind of time decay symbology. Now, if we want to have a look at the details, I can just select survey in my layers panel and then pop open the attribute table. And these are all the details that will be collected for a survey. So we have the obvious ones: date. The data recorder I've changed to AN other just to protect people's identities. Number of people, what type of survey it was it a dive, was it a snorkel, site name, etc. So lots and lots of information stored here, and we do have an awful lot of fields in this attribute table. Now, in terms of counts, you can see there are a lot of zeros in here. It's just if you see megafauna, how many did you see, and you just top those up. Across here, we also have species photos. So for each kind of individual group, here we might have rays, for example. We do have photographs of each species so that you can have a look and just double check what you saw and make sure that you get the count right. And that's the little trick that I wanted to show you in this tutorial today. So now that we've had a look at the project in QGIS, let's have a quick look and see how it functions in the app. Here we are in the Maldives. Well, actually, I'm in Leeds, but you know, rough with the smooth. And what I'd like to do is just record a new track. So I'll show you what I did there in order to do this. This is on an Android device, incidentally. So I'm going to go for add. So that's, I would like to add a new survey. And these surveys are kind of transects. So I'm going to add a point and then add another point. There's an extremely long dive. Okay. And then if I hit the record button here, that will pop open the form that I can fill in and record all the data that I want to. So if I hit record, here is our form. And you can see that it's split up really nicely. We've got the survey itself, what the date is. If I just hit this, it's going to default to today's date. And if I hit this, it's going to default to the time as well. Notice that we're asking for Malay time. That's for the Maldives. Data recorder is just a drop down. I can choose from a list of names, and then the number of people on the dive, I can just use the plus button to add that up. Survey type, another drop down. If I use that, I can choose a dive, snorkel, etc. Similarly, I can switch over to the details tab and then just fill all of this in. If I see turtles on my dive, I can choose the turtles tab and how many green male turtles I saw that were over 65 centimeters in length, etc. Now, the part that I wanted to show you was this little doohickey up here which says show ID photos. Currently it's asking, do we want to show them? And if I use this toggle switch, there we go. We get nice pictures in app of the species that we're looking for. So this can be really useful. You could put anything in here. It could be further instructions on the type of data that you should be collecting, a checklist, or perhaps even a key for species identification. So you can adapt this to whatever type of survey you're actually conducting. So this is what it looks like in the app. If I toggle that switch off again, then these photos vanish and I can just get back to recording the data. And if I go to sharks, same thing again. Here we go. So including these photos, really, really valuable. And there is a couple of tricks in order to get this set up in the Mergin Maps project. So let's jump back into QGIS and I'll show you how that works. Here we are back in QGIS, and if I select my survey layer, I can just right click and open up the properties for this layer. Now within the layer properties we get all the information. We can change symbology, play around with the labels, etc. One quick way to have a look at all the fields that are associated with your layer, so all the attributes, is just to click on this fields one, and we can see all the different fields, what data types they are, if they've got any aliases, etc. And if I scroll down here, you can see that we've got absolutely tons of fields in here. So just an easier way to have a look at that, or a different way to have a look at it. If I go to the option underneath, the tab underneath, this is the attributes form. And it's in here that we can set up our Mergin Maps project and really decide what the user's going to see. So if I click on my attributes form, properties, I've got all the fields available to me here in this left-hand pane. So if I scroll down, that's all the fields that are included in this particular layer. And over on the right-hand side, I can choose which fields are going to be exposed to the user. Now, if I collapse these down, you should notice something, or you may notice something. These are the tabs that were included in our Mergin Maps form. So when the user opens up the app and decides to record a new survey, these are the tabs that they will see. And within these tabs, you can see that we've got things like date, start time, data recorder, etc. Each one of these can have a different widget attached to it. So if I go into date here, you can see that the widget type is set to date or time, and I can set a default format for the dates and how that's going to be handled. Now, when it comes to number of people, for example, we have a range here. It's editable. I can put in 0 to 100, and the step each time I push the plus button in the app, that's going to go up just by increments of 1. For survey type, I have a value map, so I can choose from a drop-down list. It can be a dive, a snorkel, or a shore sighting. Now, for our turtles, if you remember, we had this clever little thing that allows us to see the turtle pictures. Now, what we've done here is we've got show turtle photos, and we've set this as the widget type of a checkbox. In its checked state, it's going to show as hide, and in its unchecked state, it is going to show as show. Underneath, we have what's known as a group box, and we can control the visibility by an expression. And within this group box, we can put the location of our photograph. Very, very neat. So I'm just going to show you how we can build this kind of from scratch. I'll just add on to the end of this particular form. So if I use this green button up here, I can choose to add a container for the survey. It's going to be demo. And I'd like this to be a tab as opposed to anything else. Just a tab, thank you. Okay, and you can see that that puts a new tab into my form. Now if I scroll down to the bottom here, I have a couple of extra attributes that I can use. So I'm going to go for show demo photo. I'll drag this up and drop it into my demo tab, and now I have this available. Very good. Now before we go any further, I'd just like to add in a group box as well. So I'll add in a group box, go to container type, group box, and I'm going to give this no label at all, and it wants to be within my demo tab. Okay. Now what I'd like to have inside my group box is another attribute, another field, and I'd like that to be demo photo. And what that will do is actually guide the app to where my photo is stored. So now that we've built up our tab, that looks good. We have show demo photo. We've got a little group box that we can collapse or uncollapse. And now I'll show you how we can actually set this up so that it can be controlled by the user. So if I select my show demo photo, in here I will say show photo for the alias, and that is the text that the user will see. It will be editable, and for the widget type, I would like to set this to a checkbox. And in its checked state, it is going to say hide, and in its unchecked state, it is going to say show. Now, a little tip for you down here is just the display settings for our show demo photo. Here we've got the display settings set to plain text using true or false. Now, I don't want that. I want these values to actually be shown. So it'll say hide or show. So this will override the true or false. And if I use the drop down here, I can say stored values. So I would like these values to be exposed to the user so I can see what's happening. Now I've done quite a bit at this point. I have created a new tab, I've added in a couple of attributes, and I've also added in this empty group box, or this group box with no name. It's actually got demo photo within it, as we can see there. When you're working with Mergin Maps and when you're building your forms, it's a really good idea to kind of stop, think about what you've done, and imagine what it's going to look like to the user. So I'm just going to OK that. Now, a quick way, rather than toing and froing between the app and the QGIS desktop, nice quick way to check this out is just to go to our layer and decide to edit it. So I've got survey selected, and I'll just go and toggle editing. Now we're going to pretend again that we're on a dive. And if I just go up here and add a line feature, we're going to do an extraordinary long dive again. And if I right click, that will create the feature. And once the feature is created, I will get the feature attributes popping up. And you can see that this comes in a nice form, and I can choose whether or not to fill this in. Now, this is a really neat way, as I said, to just check what's happening and see if things are working as planned. So we can see all the tabs along the top here, and here's my extra tab. This is behavior we would expect, so things are going well. If I just click on demo here, I have the toggle for show photo, and I can choose to select that or not select it. And currently this demo photo just has a null value. Now, when it comes to the checkbox will behave differently according to what platform you're in. Here I'm on QGIS desktop, so I just get a little tick or no tick. But I'll show you in the Android app what it looks like. It's a little bit slicker. Now let's add a little more functionality to our attributes form so that we can control whether or not we see this photo. So I'll just OK out of this, and then I'm going to choose to stop editing and discard my edits. I don't need to keep those. And then I'll select the survey form, and I'd just like to open up the attributes form. So go to properties, and into the attributes form, I'll just collapse these so that we can see our target tab, the demo tab. So here I've got show demo photo, we've got checkbox, hide show, and stored values in the display settings. Now if I select the group box, I can choose to control the visibility of this group box using an expression. I'll open up the expression builder, and here I'm going to use fields and values. And I'm just going to double click show demo photo. Now if you remember, the value for this can be show or hide, and it depends logically whether or not it makes sense to have whichever one checked or unchecked. For me, if it says hide, or if the value is hide, then I actually want to show the group box, because that means that the user is going to see the value hide and then hit the toggle switch in order to hide. So I'll set that up as that, OK, and you can see that my expression has gone in there. Now, should we do a quick test? Probably it'd be a good idea to see what's going on here. So I'm going to OK that, go through my process again of creating a quick transect. And here's my tab with the demo in it. And you can see currently I cannot see that box at all. And if I toggle this, now I can see the demo photo. Excellent. Everything is working as planned. So I shall discard my edits and get back into, you guessed it, the attributes form. Now in my attributes form, I want to change the demo photo. So currently the widget type is set to text edit. I'd like to change that to attachment. And this is going to allow us to bring in a picture as an attachment, and Mergin Maps will be able to find it. So we need to change a few settings here. I'm going to leave the default path as it is, no value in there, and then I'm going to go store path as, and instead of absolute path I'm going to go relative to project path. I'll show you what that looks like in Windows File Explorer in a second. Further down, for the integrated document viewer, I'm going to set the type to image. That means that in the app we'll actually see the image that we're going to point to. And then when it comes to a default value, so what value is going to be stored in this field, I'm going to add in the location and the file name of my image. So here you can see it's in a folder called new img, and then the file itself is called bgfish. Now, because we've set these as relative to the project path, wherever our QGIS project is stored, this is going to be relative to it. So it doesn't matter if we move across to a different device, so long as our QGIS project is structured the same way, Mergin Maps will always be able to find this particular image. Here I've got Windows File Explorer open, and you can see that my Megafauna survey demo QGZ file, so the QGIS project, is stored here. Now, all file paths that I produce or that I use because of that setting will be relative to where this project file is stored. So you could see in that text string that I just had a new image or new img for the folder. And if I double click into here, there's my bgfish.png. So that's how we're building that path. The reason that we put it as a relative file path relative to the project is that that path will now work on a mobile device, it'll work on Android, it'll work on iPhone as well. So we just like to keep those nice and relative to where our project is stored. Here I am back in QGIS, and as one final thing that I'd like to do for my demo photo, rather than it just saying demo photo when the user sees it, I'd like to give it an alias. And this is what the user will see in app. So I'll just say, here's my demo photo. Okay, with all that set, I'm going to OK it. I'm going to go against my own advice, and I'm going to have a look at this in app and see what it looks like, rather than just doing an edit in QGIS. So I'm going to save my project, Control S, and then I'm going to synchronize the Mergin Maps project. And that should fly up to the cloud. So my images will be stored up there as well. Okay, and now I should be able to sync the project on my Android version and have a look at that new demo tab. So here's my project in the Mergin Maps Android app, and I'm just going to hit sync. And the project has successfully synchronized. Excellent. So I should be working with the latest version of the project, the one that's got my demo tab in there. So if I go to add, we're going to do another extremely long dive. Whew, going to be tired by the end of today. And add in another point. 2 will do. That is absolutely fine. And then I'm going to go to record. Very straight dive. Okay, I don't need to fill in all these details. I'm just looking to do my little demo. There it is. There's my demo tab. So if I select that, now we can see that we've got show photo. And if I'd like to show, I hit the switch. You can see how that behaves differently than it did in the QGIS desktop version. And if I hit show, here's my demo photo. It looks like our species in this case is the lesser spotted burdGIS fish. If I just click on that, what a beauty. All right, so that's how we can put together a nice little reveal for any extra information that we might not want to clutter up our forms with. Hope you enjoyed that and found it useful.
Wow, that was a really cool demo, and I learned some new tricks in Mergin Maps that I didn't know of. So thanks for that. So Oliver, if we want to learn more about your work, how we can find you?
Very easily. I have rather a unique name, so I do show up on searches quite easily. Also, I have all the usual social media accounts. Thanks for the plug at the top of this, Hans. So I do have a YouTube account. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Also teaching. I teach at Oxford University. I have a number of online courses as well, and you can get in touch for bespoke courses as well, in person or online. And I do have a monthly newsletter that comes out on the first Friday of each month. So sign up for that through the website and we'll be in touch.
Wow, that's great. Thanks a lot, Oliver, for this great interview. I think the audience appreciates all the tips, and if they want to get in touch with you, they know now how to find you. So hope to see more of your work. Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Good to see you again, Hans.